Hello, and welcome to Between Sundays. My name is Hannah.
And I'm Tammy.
And today we're talking about giving. So Tammy, as of the day that this video is being aired, we will have voted on and approved the 2026 Financial Ministry Plan.
Yes.
Can you please tell us what that is? I know there's some people that probably haven't seen it or read it or any of that.
Well, the financial ministry plan is just a lot of words to say it's the church budget. It's how we manage. It's a plan for the future for how we steward the resources that we get to be able to fuel the ministries and the missions of Deer Meadows. Because everything that we do, just like in your own homes, it costs money. So we have to be good stewards of the money that we project that's going to come in and how we're going to spend that in order to be able to accomplish the things that we really feel like God has us here to accomplish in our ministries.
Well, that's perfect. So we are asking people to participate in this financial ministry plan. What does that kind of entail?
Well, we ask people to participate because the gifts, the tithes, the offerings, the contributions that people make into our general fund is our only source of income, so to speak, to be able to pay for all of the things that it takes to run these ministries. So when we ask people to participate in that, we're asking for people to really kind of seek where God is asking them to participate financially in the life and the growth of the ministries of Deer Meadows. So that's the source of income. That's where it all comes from. So because we don't sell things, we don't get grants from other organizations. We do really rely on the generosity, the gifts, the tithes and offerings of the people here at Deer Meadows.
So we've kind of talked about this as the church kind of running very similar to business. So I feel like that explained it really, really well.
Yeah. So it really is. I mean, we like to think, some of us just come here on Sunday mornings and we think, the music's nice and the pastor's preaching and all. But we run a 7-day-a-week operation here. We have ministries of our own church programs that run outside of Sunday mornings. I mean, mainly we have Wednesday night. We provide a dinner on Wednesday nights at a very minimal cost that is not. We pay to participate in that, but it doesn't cover the cost of those meals because it's a ministry. We highly value connecting with one another and being able to sit around tables and have a meal with one another is highly valued here. That's the way we make those connections. So we have Wednesday nights. We have our ESL program that ministers to literally 200 and 300 people that are here in our community who are just learning to speak our language so that they can get jobs and be able to live in our culture. We have Bible studies that happen. Our doors are open to support groups throughout the week, various different support groups that really minister and help people. And so we have our food pantry here that's open on Thursdays. So every day of the week, we're open. And so if one only comes on Sundays, you think, well, what do we need a big budget for? Well, we're running a campus, a rather large campus that costs, you got to pay JEA for power and water and then insurance. We all know if you're a homeowner, you know the cost of insurance lately. So there are just a lot of costs that it costs to be able to be here. But that's really what we think, what we really feel that God has led us to be, is this campus, this place to come and gather here in our community.
That's awesome. So we kind of, in tying in what the first question was, we're asking people to make a pledge towards 2026. What if somebody's wanting to know where that pledge is going, which you kind of explained, like, as we run a business kind of thing,
right?
where can they see that information?
Right. So on our website is a great source for all kinds of information. There is a tab called the Give tab, and under that Give tab, when it opens, you'll see a form or a display there to be able to give online, like with a credit card or a bank draft that is to do. But if you scroll down just below that, each month our finance committee and the treasurer of our church puts together the treasurer's report. And so we report monthly how the church is doing with all of the things. You can see there the line items that we're spending the money on. You can see how much we had planned to receive versus how much we did receive. You can see what our plan is for 2025, and be able to see exactly where all our money's going. And then also our finance committee manages that and is charged with being good stewards of what our contributions are and how God blesses our church. And so they are accountable to make sure that we spend that money in a way that is God honoring and kingdom growing.
So. And then for the 2026 plan, where do you think they can go look at that?
Actually, it's on that very same page. But there is another tab. There's another way to get to it. If you go to the pledge page, you'll see the form to pledge there, but you'll see a copy of the plan for 26 and then your opportunity to pledge for that.
And just for fun fact's sake, how early do we start planning the budget for the next year?
We're already planning 27
yes,
right now.
Yeah, right.
So because we do look at the contributions that we receive and all of our expenses, we look at those on a monthly basis. In any good financial planning, you need to have a good understanding of where you're currently spending your money, what is changing in your plans for the future, and how might that be affecting the costs going forward. So because of that, we're always looking forward into next year, and then into the years beyond that too, and looking at trends and growth. And really, unlike a business, a lot of what we do is based on faith. We really feel like if God gives us plans, then He's going to provide for those plans. And so if it's then we really rely on God speaking to the hearts of our people to support the plans that He's given us.
That's awesome. And one of the questions that I've received, I don't know if you've received this question, but a lot of people will look at the budget and see that we do have a staff budget to pay for people that are on staff. And one of the things that I wanted to share is that we do get a paycheck through the church.
Yeah.
But we're also called to give. And we were talking earlier today, and we were talking about how people that work for IRS and tax services are still called to pay their taxes.
Exactly.
And so if you think about it, church members and church staff are still called to.
Right. In fact, as church leaders, I know the pastoral staff is challenged that we need to be the leaders in this. We need to lead out in our own giving. We need to model that giving. And then anyone who is part of our staff, just like anybody else who has a job, you're given a paycheck, but the Lord really asks us and commands us to give, to trust Him with giving that back for His work and for His kingdom, and really, just the thought of our first fruits. Just as if we were out farmers gathering our grain or our crops, the Lord asks for our best and our first, and we're not exempt from that just because we work for the church. Just like what you said about people who work for IRS are not exempt from taxes.
Well, it's almost like more so because we see what it's doing and we can see the impact that it has at the church, and that's just a really cool thing for me at least.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I have a next crazy question.
Okay, let me hear it.
So, you're a parent of 2 young adults.
Yeah.
I'm a young adult.
Okay.
There are a lot of people around our ages that kind of find it difficult to maybe maneuver their budget to find space or to make space for tithing and giving.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people that struggle with that?
Well, that's a great question. And I know that, even when I was young, it took some thought about that, because it's not just going to happen. We have such a hold on our money, and we're dependent upon our money and our income. So one of the things, just like I was mentioning that the church does, is we look back at where we're spending our money. I think there's a first step would be, if anyone's putting together a budget, is to have a clear understanding of where your money is going now. Mm-hmm. So I recommend taking at least a month, maybe 2 months, look over your credit card and look over your debit card activity, and then your checking account. Like literally log onto the account and make a list of where all your money's going. I know if I were to look at one of my son's accounts, I think they would be surprised if they did this exercise at how many stops at a convenience store, or stops by Starbucks, or just grabbing, going through the drive-through, and how, while it seems like, oh, it's only $5, but if you do that every day, that's a lot of money. Yes, and if you total all those expenses up at the end of the month, I predict that some people would be very surprised at how much of their money is going toward things that they just think are just little cost. Mm-hmm. I think you'll identify where you have subscriptions that you're not using, or where you're paying, for 3 different streaming services that, oh yeah, I forgot I was paying for that. So I would say your first step is to get a good understanding of where your money is going now. I think it's important to, just like God said we give our first fruits, is go ahead and decide on the amount that you want to give and put that at the top of your spend list. Mm-hmm. And then you work all what's left and you decide what to do with what's left. But God calls us to give it to Him first. So I think those 2 things would really be your first steps in putting together a budget.
And we typically recommend, there's a difference between tithing and giving, right? So tithing is more of like a regular occurring thing, kind of, how would you put it? Not a tax. Well, that's a bad way to put it.
No. And then, there's a calculation in the Old Testament about what a tithe is, and it's 10%. Yes. So if we look at 10% of your paycheck, that would be technically kind of one way to describe a tithe. Although in the New Testament, those people were incredible givers, and they were so generous that they gave way more than 10%. I think it is, I fall back to the scripture that says that we're all supposed to decide in our heart what we're supposed to give. And I think if you start with that, I think you'll find that the blessings that you receive from giving will inspire you. When you start to see how God is using that, how God is changing your heart, I think it will inspire you to give more. Now, I do think that it's important, and that's why we do a pledge, is we make that promise. I'm going to commit that I'm going to give this much on this regular basis, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, or I'm just going to write one big old fat check at the end of the year. Whatever that is, that you've made that promise and that you have prayerfully sought out what the Lord wants you to give, and you make that promise. And so that is one of the tools that helps people to be regular with what they give, because they know, oh yeah, I made that promise. I did that pledge. Yeah. Another great tool that we have, and you can find that in the online giving application, is to make your giving recurring.
Yeah.
And I mean, I mentioned a while ago the subscriptions that you have, and all the things that you have on auto pay. Well, why not make the church and your gift to the church auto pay as well? Yeah. So that is a really good tool. It's like, decide, okay, I'm going to commit to do this. Just put it on recurring, and it is on auto pay. Mm-hmm. But you were talking about tithing. So tithing is kind of like a percent, a 10, and then gifts. there are times when God's asked us to give abundantly, to give, that He gives to us more than we could ever ask or imagine. Yeah. And just those gifts are what you decide in your heart to give. So, tithing is kind of like, here's my minimum, and then that I want to participate, and then the gifts and your sacrificial giving is above and beyond that.
And we've heard Pastor Larry a lot of times will say that giving kind of needs to hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
And like you said, like we give because God first gave. Well, God kind of gave a huge sacrifice.
Yes, He did.
His like first and only Son. And we talked about first fruits.
Right.
And so that's what just makes it that much more important that we learn to give from God.
Yes.
What He's given to us. So then for us, it's whatever we're willing to. If you need to make sacrifices in your budget, if you need to skip out on getting coffee regularly or whatever, it's got to take a little bit of effort. And some of that includes changing habits, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So changing those habits. And that's that kind of gets us back to the recurring giving, as you make it a habit to give. And then just, taking stock of where you're spending your money now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, do you have any other additional thoughts on this? Because it's a lot of
information. And it is difficult. I find that talking about giving, talking about money in church sometimes is a big turnoff to people.
Yes.
And it is. But we're so free to talk about, we need to serve, we need to volunteer to do things, we need to be good stewards with our time, we need to make sure that God is in our plans for the future. And we ask God for so many, we're not afraid to run to Him when we have a relationship issue. We're not afraid to run to God when we have big decisions that we're trying to make. Or we're in a crisis and we cry out to God for that. But why do we find it so difficult to look at our paycheck, look at our bank account, and ask God, what do you want me to do with what you've given me? I think about that parable where the master left and he gave 3 different servants different amounts of money. Yeah. And how 2 of them went out and made good with that money. They either invested it or they bought other things with it and brought back a profit to the master. But the one dude, he just goes out and puts it in a hole in the ground.
He buried it.
He buried it. And he's like, "Oh, look, master, I gave you back what you gave me." He's like, What were you talking about? You could have at least put that in the bank and gotten interest on it.
Yeah.
And so I think about, and those words ring in my ears. It's like, God asked me, what did you do with what I gave you? Mm-hmm. What are you doing with everything I've given you? I've given you these blessings. How are you returning those? How are you returning a good investment to me with what I've given you? And so that kind of, when I recognize that it all comes from Him, He owns it all anyway, and He's just asking me to be a good servant in how I use the blessings, it really changed my perspective on being able to be generous because it's so much fun to give away other people's money. And so when I realized that everything I have, it's His anyway, well, why not be a little more generous? Yeah. And so that kind of released it for me.
Well, you had a really good analogy about holding on too tightly.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So when we hold on to our money, when we hold on to our relationships, when we hold on to that job, when we hold on to those things that God gave us, we almost clench our fists, like, I'm holding on to it so tight. This money is mine. These blessings are mine. Yeah. I worked for them. I'm going to hold on to them. But what we don't realize is that by clenching our fists and holding so tightly to those, we miss out in being able to open our hands and receive the bigger, better gifts that God has for us. So if we just loosen that grip that we have on some of those things that we hold so dear, I believe and I know that God's Word tells us that He is ready to bless us more than we could ever think or imagine in what He has for us in His kingdom.
See, I knew that was a great analogy. I just want to make sure we share it with everybody.
Good. All right, great.
Anything else that I'm missing? I feel like we've covered everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just encourage people, make a pledge. Make a promise to evaluate where you are financially and look at where are you making an investment in God's kingdom and what are you doing with the blessings that God gives you.
That's perfect. Couldn't have said it better.
All right. Thank you, Hannah.
No, thank you. And if you're interested in our 2026 financial ministry plan or learning more about giving, you can check out our website. We've got deermeadows.org/pledge to learn more about pledging and the ministry plan, and then deermeadows.org/give to learn more about setting up recurring giving. You can see the treasurer reports that Tammy mentioned. And as always, you can send us your questions at questions@deermeadows.org. One of our staff will be in touch with you. We can answer any kind of question you have, and we'll point you in the right direction towards resources if you have questions about budgeting and any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.